Hi, I'm Angeline. We're on day 2 of our exploration of Snake Gulch. Snake Gulch is in the Arizona Strip, which is in northern Arizona bordering Utah. So please watch part 1 for a complete and comprehensive explanation of why Snake Gulch it has been monumentally important to people throughout the entire Southwest for over 2,000 years. I make these videos to drive home the point that the reason that rupestриan artification of the rocks that's left here by native people thousands of years ago seems archaic to us is because it is archaic. That's how long the history of the Native American people of today, that's how far back their history goes right here on this land. Personally, I'm consistently entranced with the basket maker era images. These ones behind me. The petroglyphs are usually like hollow and otherworldly, and the pictographs are fancy. They're huge with a lot of color. I think that basket makers were at this cusp of psychological development between being completely at the mercy of nature and realizing that humans can have some dominion over nature. Before them, they were nomadic, hunting, gathering at the whims of, anything that nature had to offer. The holy person of the tribe was probably extremely important because they held the key to controlling nature in some way with mystical powers. And as you get up into the Pueblo era, you see that the shift in thinking has gone completely into humans being the source of power. Humans control the land. Humans control societies. In fact, that's part of the fall of the Pueblo culture. Was it got top heavy. There were the resources were going to the rich and the powerful. The people were starving. Their teeth were showing wear of malnutrition, and the civilizations were too big to sustain them. And these guys, they were right in between. They were just discovering that they could build larger and larger societies that could stay in place for longer and longer periods of time, and that they could continue to feed themselves. They were investing in their landscape, but they weren't quite they weren't quite there yet. People before them, they make squiggles on the rocks. They make images that are not iconographic like this. Basket makers start making people. They start making holy people. They start making spirit people. Magic, spiritualism, that's a big part of their world. Pueblo, their images are tiny, but their people are powerful. It's said that irrigation canals, even in the far north of the Southwest, were found dating back as early as 1000 BC, which means there was the beginning of agriculture even before that, because the canals would have been formed to water the large-scale agriculture. Here in Snake Gulch, horticulture, meaning small plot farming, began before the year 300 and lasted until about 800, when large-scale agriculture became part of the lifestyle of the people that lived here in Snake Gulch. And the gulch itself is a natural canal that would provide water to the fields. This is interesting. This looks like someone on horseback. That one must be quite new. And this is a perfect example of why this canyon is so important and has been for at least 2,000 years. Because look at just the range of ages of images just on this one panel. Those are almost totally washed away because they're so old. Those are definitely basket maker, which could go back as early as the year 300. And then this must be as late as when horses were introduced to the Southwest. And people come back today and use these images. That one looks, there's definitely basket maker. The dark image is basket maker era. And then this one is painted over it. I mean, it's scratched over it in a totally different style, but perhaps representing the same concept that was painted the first time, just in a different style. When they're used again, Okay, so people come back to this canyon even now and reactivate these images by maintaining them, by painting over them. And sometimes they paint over them with the same color, but it's slightly different tint. Sometimes it's a totally different color. Sometimes a whole new image is carved or painted on top of the image. That's a way to reactivate the image. And they're used today. This is like your great-great-great-great-grandparents' heirlooms they leave to you. This is the story of the people. This teaches people how to live. This teaches people where their ancestors were. If we were all still living off the land and we weren't in this age of internet, we would need these to tell us where our people are supposed to be, how to use the land, and how to take care of the land. If you see your family's image on these rocks, you know that this is the piece of land that you're meant to take care of, and it will treat you well. The spirits of your people are here to protect and help you. Again, watch part 1 for a more comprehensive explanation of these Fremont-inspired images that show up all over the canyon. Those are actually people. You don't see the people, you just see the material items, the ornamentation that are attached to their bodies. The people are implied, perhaps they're spirits, but the bodies themselves are invisible. All that's visible is the material items, earrings, headdress. And here the body's white. Looks like even some faint red paint for the necklace. Talking about choosing certain places for certain kinds of images. These beings with their earbobs and their headdresses and their masks, which in that case are invisible. This case you have the yellow mask, the red's the headdress, the white and red are the earbobs, and the body comes down from there. The torso is white. These images look out into this. I see those same masks with earbobs and headdresses and sashes in many, many different forms on that surface. There's something especially interesting happening in this cave here. See this red mud? That's the mud that you see down on the floor, the loamy soil that's so fertile, and that's in the canal of the Gulch all along this canyon. Now this mud has been smeared on this wall. It doesn't appear to accompany any masonry per se. It looks like it's just been rubbed on the wall. And then further down, there are, in the ceiling of the overhang, where can I show you? There's a lot of splotches of this same mud tossed up in balls to stick to the ceiling, kind of like spitwads. I'm not calling them spitwads, but I'm just trying to explain to you what I see, what it looks like. In part 1 of Snake Gulch, I actually talk a little bit about this and how a Navajo guide, this isn't Navajo country, but a Navajo guide showed me something like this, similar to this, and explain that it wasn't an accident. This is something people do. So watch part 1 for a longer explanation about that. But all along the top here are these mud bombs, and all along the walls too. And then in the lower level, there's some mud bombs down there too, but the lower level is where we get the finer imagery. This is a really nice, huge shelter. And it looks like something was built up over here. There's a lot of fire stains on that back wall, but there's also above the fire stains in the little nook there are some images, and it looks like something was built up here. Maybe that's a windbreak of some kind. One thing I've noticed about these shelters that are against this bedrock here is there aren't rodents. A lot of times I live in California, and a lot of the rock shelters are made of boulders, and they tend to have a lot of pack rats living underneath them. But these shelters here where the rock actually extends down into the ground don't seem to have the markings of rodents in them. So they actually are kind of good places to store food and to sleep. We're in the Kaibab National Forest, and it gets stinking cold here. And what I'm wondering, I have to look this up, I don't know the answer. I don't know if the basket maker people actually built brush huts that extend out from the rock. And if they did, this would make a lot of sense. If you have, you know, a barrier on the outside here, you got your perfect little windbreak in the corner, the fire would heat up this area pretty well. You know, and maybe that, like the brush huts maybe were lean-to against that. I'll have to check. I don't know. If you know, let me know. Okay, I'll try to keep this short. This image here is related to an image that you can find, images of a similar kind with the hollow, ghostly body, that you can find at the end of Snake Gulch here, and which is the west side, and a little to the north near Mount Trumbull, where there's a lot of volcanic activity. That's the land of the Southern Paiute. The Southern Paiute have a practice. The Southern Paiute were also here in Snake Gulch, and the Southern Paiute have special shamans. They're volcano shamans, and they travel down the sacred trail right to the base of volcanic activity, and where ornitos bubble up from the ground, little bubbling up lava places. The volcano shamans, they know how to read the volcanic activity and know just the right moment when lava is going to bubble up, and just the right moment to approach it, where they will smash some pottery into the lava. They know just how long to wait for it to cool before extracting it out again and bringing a rock that's attached to, a rock of lava that's attached to the pottery, and bringing it with them back up the sacred trail to the cave which leads to the underworld. And they take the sacred rock, this sacred blend of heat and earth, this fertile soil, this rock of this marriage of earth and fire, down into the cave. And at the top of the cave, right before it drops into the underworld, are images like this. And I think they might, one or more of them might be filled in with yellow. So we know, I think we know who made these. See this image next to me? It's a person wearing a necklace. You see the draping necklaces there? Just like me. It's life-size. Feet go all the way to the floor, just like mine. And then these two on the same panel are teeny tiny. It's the same thing. I think these are the headdress here and the mask, I think. Or it could be the headdress. Yeah, that has to be that. Yep, and this is the little, oops, sorry. This is the little top part of the head and the mask. As time went on, the representation might stay similar, but the images got smaller. At least 4 different eras and 4 different kinds of paint are just right here. These are kind of just painted with, they're basically looks like kind of mud and white paint underneath it. Oh wow, yeah, originally white paint and then this kind of mud-like paint over it. These are white paint, obviously red, and then very faint here, white paint. Toward the end of the day yesterday, it was about 5 o'clock and I'd been out all day. I was getting tired and I thought, okay, I'm gonna stop for the day, stop exploring, hike to the end of this canyon, sleep, and then tomorrow walk back, you know, and continue to explore, but on the way back. But then I started to notice most of the imagery, except I'm looking across there and I see some on the south side. Most of the imagery is on the north side of the canyon, so that it has southern exposure. It sees the sun as the sun makes its, you know, daily route across the sky. That's also the side that people would mostly stay on because it's the warmer side. And also I noticed that if I were to be walking the opposite way, I wouldn't be able to see a lot of these images because they face the west. I'm sorry, they face the east. So not only do they face the sun throughout its day, but they also face the sunrise. They're not all directly in the sun, but they face the sun. So I decided to sleep halfway through the canyon and I'll continue on exploring until maybe there'll be a grand finale at the end. I was going to make this a 3-day trip, but I started running low on water and I thought, that's okay, no problem. I'll find water, no big deal. But then I started running low on camera batteries. So that's a different story. So let's see how far we make it. I'm definitely noticing a theme in that these spirit creatures or holy people seem to show up in pairs, at least pairs, and especially here. 2, 2, 2, 2. I don't know why I keep counting for you. You can count to 2. And sometimes, well, okay, no, that's just one long rake, but I was going to say sometimes you get these 2 rakes next to each other. Oh, here we go again. 2, but this one over here has broken away. Oh, looking more carefully, I see this isn't 2, this is 3. At least 3. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. They're pretty close to life size, and I can't tell if there might be one over here that's all worn away too. Possibly one over here. There might be as many as 5, but they're definitely 3. The Hopi definitely talk about the twin boys that I think were they born of spider grandmother, but they're the helpers of the people, and in the stories they're always playing ball. they're kind of jovial characters. They're tricksters. They show up, I don't know if trickster is quite the right word, but they've got a handle on things, you know. They're not stressed. They get things done. And these guys show up also in Aztec mythology, which is related. It's the same. These are Uto-Aztecan people we're talking about. They all have a similar creation past. It's morphed with the tribes separating in such great distances. The stories change a little bit, but the broad strokes are pretty much the same, and we have such a great record of the Aztecs from some of the priests that came and faithfully recorded their stories in the codices. I'm now down to one small bottle of water and a can of Starbucks double shot. But the camera batteries are still going strong, so we're not in dire straits yet. Look how out in the open these are. A lot of them in this canyon are like that, especially of this style. And you can compare this to other locations where the pictographs or petroglyphs are hidden away, tucked away in little caves. Those would be for secret, sacred ceremonies. Images like this that are out in the open, they're meant to be seen. They're meant to be seen by people who are passing by or approaching, either by enemies, intruders, or by the people. So people know where to go or where to stay away from. And this style in particular does have certain kind of warlike influences. You'll see these guys carrying a spear. Some people think maybe they carry scalps. There tends to be something dangling from the hand. Look at the pair on the right, the yellow and the red standing next to each other. The yellow is a little bigger and the red's a little smaller. And look at the yellow one. He's carrying something that looks like the head of the guy next to him. Like, you know, the head of one of his friends. Could be a scalp, could be a head, could be a mask. Now this one is definitely carrying a bag. Look at his hand that's on your left. He's got a little bag in his hand. The other hand, he's carrying something else too. I can't tell what that is. I needed to add this little sidebar here because there's something very important that needs to be added to the spectrum of these interpretations. First of all, the interpretation of these characters holding a spear is an archaeologist, anthropologist observation. It doesn't mean that that's what it is. It could be, but if you notice, these spears kind of have a feather-like quality. They also have kind of a, maybe it's corn. You know, it's not conclusive that that's a spear. A spear is a hard, kind of pointy egg shape, and these have some spikes on them. So, and also with the twins come up in creation stories all over the world. We're talking about American Southwest, the stories of the American Southwest. Twins come up at the creation, and they come up at various times throughout the life of humanity. And the reason that twins seem to come up sort of from a literary perspective, I guess, is that they represent duality. There's always kind of like an enlightened twin and an unenlightened twin, or a light twin and a dark twin, or one who's beautiful and does things for the people, and one who tries to destroy people. You know, there's always some kind of duality involved in the concept of the twin. So that's the first thing, is that when I make an observation that these could be the creator twins, they could be the creator twins. They could also be these other twins that show up somewhere along the story of the people. And these are twins who, they were sort of like dark spirits, and they watched the people. And ultimately, I'm just telling you the broadest strokes of this story that I heard from the Zuni. Took about a half hour to hear this story, so you go to the Zuni if you want to hear this. I'll tell you just the short version. These twins who watched the people, they were these kind of dark people. Finally the people captured the twins and were going to execute them. And the twins, in exchange for their life, offered the people the knowledge of corn. And they are represented standing next to each other holding corn. It does look a lot like the item that these images are holding. So bear that in mind. That's yet another possibility that comes directly from the people. We've got another set of twins. And what I think is interesting about that is that a ways back in part 1, you'll see extremely similar twins with that same yellow guy, the little yellow guy off to the right, except in that case, the yellow guy is in between. I don't know what this means. The yellow guy actually looks a lot newer. His lines are thinner, the paint that's used for him is lighter, and I've seen that same yellow painted over these older images that are to the left. So I think somebody came along later and added the yellow character to the story of the twins. This is Table Rock, and behind this rock here, the point, is a little gulch behind which there should be a spring, an active spring. That spring would have fed this pueblo, this village. Now up there looks like just to be granaries, but they extend all along the side of that wall. That's a lot of food storage. That's Pueblo era, full-blown corn agriculture happening right here in Snake Gulch. And here's our canal, the natural canal that's Snake Gulch itself. Before exploring the granaries, let's head on over to Table Rock, check out the water source and see what's up in that little side canyon. I think it's pretty clear that this alcove here that's across from the granaries was part of the same pueblo. That is the most smoke stain I've ever seen on a rock wall. That is, that's 1,000 years of smoke stain right there. Of course, campers come and use this spot. You can see fresh charcoal there. This is a nice place to camp here near water, apparently. But that is a lot of smoke. That's that's archaic smoke, basket maker smoke, Pueblo smoke. All the people of the Southwest who passed through here smoked up that wall. Here in the side canyon, we've got a horse trough, or a cattle trough, something kind of trough. But if we're hoping to find water here, we are sorely disappointed. That looks disconnected. Oh, probably because they're trying to keep cattle out of here nowadays. I think I read that, because the cattle were actually disturbing the rock art. I think they get through though sometimes, because I see a lot of cat poop around. Now I'm curious if the spring's running. Good news, the spring's running. Look at this. Looks like it's bubbling up out of the ground right there. Yeah. Let's run underground for a while. Oh, there's a little thing swimming in that one. I'll tell you a little story. There was a time when I had to hike about 12 miles in 90-degree weather, humid, and was out of water. And me and my hiking buddy were so desperate that we actually boiled up frog pond water like this, and it was disgusting. But we put orange peels in it and root beer candy, and we choked it down. You gotta do what you gotta do. As if Snake Gulch knew that its longevity would end with the Pueblo era, as represented by the huge granaries over there across the gulch. All of the people from all of the epochs left their style of markings on this library of every kind of image from every age of people who passed through this canyon. It's like a review of everything we've seen so far, including the natural features, the natural wonders that appeared all along the canyon. Everything comes together. Everything ties together at this huge, huge panel. What's up here in this cliff is a granary. That is Table Rock right there. I don't know if there was ever living space up here on this ledge, because look at all that rock fall. I mean, a lot of the surface area may have fallen away. Maybe a couple people stayed up here with the granaries. I did see some charcoal, but who knows? That could be campers at some point and made those. Most of the walls for the granaries are over here. I found some really interesting artifacts up here too. Show you those in a second. These are all the little granary storage areas. Inside this one, where is it? Look at all the fingerprints of the makers going in all directions, smearing that mortar around all over these walls, making a nice tight seal. What is that? What is that, horse teeth? They're really light though. Like that, you know, like they're old. Brittle. I don't think a new horse could chew much with those, if that's what they are, if they're horse teeth. What could that be? Is that a vertebrae? That's bone, for sure. It's really light and old though. I can't believe this. This is so great. Okay, I don't know if you can see that. Do you see all those splotches of red that are all over the high ceiling? I mean, okay, just for some perspective, I'm way down lowly here at this level of the granary. These go all the way up the wall. I got some paint, some pictographs there, and then way up on the ceiling, way up there, are those splotches of mud. I think my Navajo guide that I was talking about in part 1 was right. throwing contest. That's the granaries over there, the main area. And I like this. Look, there's a trail that goes all the way around the cliff. Do. And then over to some images over there. I'm gonna see if I can walk the cliff all the way over there. I did, how fun. the trail, the cliff trail comes all the way over to these images. I don't think my mother would approve. So imagine out here we would have had fields of corn crops. And the spring that feeds this village is right up in there, Table Rock Spring. I just noticed that I'm standing in more granaries actually. These images stand watch over these granaries that are right here at the edge of this side of the cliff. I like this very much as a stopping place for this adventure. We've explored this canyon all the way from the late Archaic period up until the most modern of times that this canyon was used, which was in the Pueblo period, all the way from the beginnings of horticulture to the strength and the heart of the times of full-blown agriculture, when cliff dwellings and pueblos were used up in the cliffs to store the food and for people to live. I could stay out longer. I know if I continue down this canyon that we're going to see more and more and more, but I think this is a natural stopping place, and I think we've pretty much gotten the experience. I hope you've enjoyed it. As Abraham Hicks would say, we are complete.